Hey guys, man, I hope this thing is working because this is our first Game Change live stream forum. Really happy you guys could join us. My name is Jack Baric. I am the co-founder of Game Change. I've got with me my partner in crime, former All-American and NFL quarterback Paul McDonald. Say hello, Paul.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Awesome. And all the way from Ohio, the brains of our operation, not that Paul and I are the smartest guys, but the real brains of our operation is Dr. Michael Brown, who is an amazing high performance mindset coach sought out by elite athletes at the college and pro level. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well, Jack. I feel very flattered, and I am checking in from freezing sub-zero Ohio. So I think you guys are what, sunny California?
Well,
Oh my
I think we
goodness.
dipped below 80 today, so it got a little cooler.
Whoa. I'm sure our listeners, I'm sure 3/4 of our listeners across the country are feeling really sad for
Yeah,
you right now.
you're not going to rub it in too much. By the way, we like to call Michael DMB. So if you hear us saying DMB, that is the man up in the upper right hand corner we're referring to. Before we get into Paul's stories, I promised everybody we'd tell a great story about how Paul went from being a ninth string quarterback when he entered USC as a freshman, all the way to All-American, all the way to the NFL. But before we do that, I kind of wanted to kind of go over a little bit of the topics that we're going to be covering tonight that are coming out of Paul's story. And the first one is this idea called hustle over talent. DMB and all the coaches all the athletes that you've coached, what have you seen as the more important ingredient in their success? Their athletic talent or how hard they work?
Well, you actually said coaches and athletes. So I spend as much time with coaches across the country as I do actually athletes, and they both need to have the hustle alongside of, not in place of, but alongside of talent. It's interesting as people ask me, in fact, I was really encouraged to see your word hustle because when people ask me, what does it mean to be elite? I actually talk about 5 H's. Hustle is one of them, believe it or not, my friend, but humility, honesty, um, healthiness and hunger are 4 of them. And then there is hustle. And what I love about hustle is this: talent is who you might be, hustle is who you will be.
I love that.
So talent is awesome. You can't choose your genetics, you can't choose your background, you can't choose necessarily your early life childhood experiences, but you have 100% control over your choices. And it's actually your choices that build the resilience, the attitude, the fear of failure, all the things you bring that are not genetic and are not talent related that actually create, alongside of talent,
Yeah.
incredible elite athletes and coaches.
My
Awesome.
only comment on that one, DMB, is if it was only talent or just talent, I never would have made it to USC. I never would have
Well, I
played in
don't
the
know if I'm
NFL.
sure.
None of that. No, it was all the
Mhm.
hustle.
And we're going to get
Well,
to
and that's
Paul's story.
what makes Jason an elite person.
No, I was just saying we're going to get to Paul's story. And when we get to Paul's story, people are gonna they're gonna kind of understand a little bit more about what Paul was just referring to. Paul, by the way, on the subject of what we were just referring to, again, without giving away your whole story, talk about your opinion about being your authentic self and leaning into your own strengths as a way to success, rather than trying to emulate what other people are doing, copying the guy next to you.
Well, we kind of live in a copycat world, don't we? We see someone doing something well over here and we go, wow, I want to do that. I'm just going to do it just like they did it. Well, they've got internal gifts and passion maybe for that particular area or skill that they have mastered that's given them the greatness that they have, whereas you may not. And so you really have to do a deep dive inward and understand, what your gifts are, what your skills are, where your interests are, and focus on that. And
Mhm.
there's a quote that I love by Henry David Thoreau: "What lies before you and what lies behind you are small matters compared to what lies within you. And when
Mhm.
you bring out what lies within, miracles happen."
And what I love about Paul McDonald in these years of as we've established our friendship, Paul, is that you are so committed to being your full and authentic self. And my thought, even as a coach and as a mindset coach, it's being your fully yourself. It's not the fastest path, but it is the strongest and the most sustainable path to becoming elite.
I love that. Not the fastest, but the strongest.
Thank you, Michael.
That's cool.
My guy.
So The last topic that we're going to be covering tonight, after we go through Paul's story, is a thing that a lot of athletes hear. It's called trust the process. DMB, I think a lot of people, it happens to me, get really overwhelmed when they have a big goal in front of them, and then they feel like they're never going to get there. It's too steep a mountain to climb. Can you talk a little bit about what trust the process means and how it's a series of steps that get you to the mountaintop, not just one big jump?
Oh, I love this conversation. In fact, you're stealing from my 3 Words podcast. I have a nationally syndicated podcast. One of those 3 Words podcasts, episode 146, is trust the process. And that is what we really believe firmly within this mindset sports performance world, that every breakthrough requires extended effort that preceded it. And so I think in many ways, we have to remember that it's not the change that we're focused on, it's the choice. So I like to be a little provocative when people say, oh, Michael, help me change, help me change, help me change. I say, you can't change, but you can choose. So as you keep compounding those choices, you keep stacking those choices, instead of looking at the summit of Mount Everest, you're just looking at the next step in front of you. And those choices, those challenges, they're not actually a disruption to who you're becoming and to this success that you want to achieve. It's actually the pathway to it, but you have to slow down and you have to take each moment, each day at a time, and realize that you are actually building what is, as I talked about already, what is sustainable and strong.
And I am the chief empowerment officer at GameChange, so I think I'm equipped to answer this. And it's the love and the passion you have for whatever you're doing that keeps you going, that keeps you moving. That's the internal. And the choices that you said, Michael, of course, that's a huge part of it. But that's what gets you up in the morning when you may not want to get up because you just love it so much.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a great Kobe Bryant story about failing in the NBA playoffs his rookie year. And everybody on the flight home, when they got home, they went home and went to sleep. At midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, he went straight to the gym and started shooting again. So his off season began before he even went to sleep after the game. And that is somebody who obviously has that crazy Mamba mentality, but it was also all about loving the process. And he actually liked going to the gym and he liked putting up those shots. And so those things that you find that you enjoy make it a lot easier. So on the subject of enjoying.
And if I may real quick though, Jack, this idea that the thing you have control over is the inputs.
Yes.
And the outcomes will come.
Right.
But we spend so much time, particularly with young athletes. I want this outcome.
Right.
You can't control the outcome, but you have 100% control of the input.
Well,
so we're talking about enjoyment.
Yeah. Go look at the Super Bowl that's going to be played next week. There's a guy named Sam Darnold who had a bad game or two for Minnesota, and they decided that the outcome of those two scoreboards didn't indicate that they could win a championship with him. And they were proven wrong because that is a guy of anybody I know of the current athletes who really does trust the process and goes one step at a time through the lows and the highs. And that's why you see him when he's interviewed after these games, he's got a big smile on his face and he's just enjoying it because he's a football player and he loves to play football. And that's a cool thing.
And those lows are as DMB said, those lows are the best thing that could ever happen to you because you have to really look inward. You have to look at what you're doing and how you're doing it and investigate everything to be able to get back up on your feet and back at it. And then the successes will come if you keep doing that.
Yep. So I promised everybody I was going to tell the Paul McDonald story or let Paul tell the story. Before we get to it, I just want to...
You can tell. You know it better than I do.
Yeah. I know the mythological story better than you do. You actually know before we jump into the story, I just want to point out to the coaches and the athletes who are on the stream with us that if you have a question for Paul or for DMB, just put it in the chat. Put your name, your school, and the sport you play or coach. And we're going to try and get to as many of those questions as we possibly can in the second half of the show so that you get an opportunity to ask a former All-American, former NFL quarterback any question you'd like, or ask a high-performance mindset coach who works with elite athletes, maybe at a place you want to get to in college or pro. And so they're here for you to answer your questions. With that said, I'm going to jump into Paul's story. So Paul, let's take it back. These are high school student athletes who are with us tonight. So let's take it back to high school. How big of a dream was it for you to go play college football? or pro football for that matter? What was the dream when you were in high school?
The dream was to be good enough to have an opportunity to play college football somewhere. I didn't look beyond that. I didn't look to the pros. I was just way down the road. I didn't look to the pros until I was a senior at USC. And, you know, we were national champions the year before. And then I thought, oh, hey, you know what? Maybe I can do this thing. Maybe I can have a chance to get paid to do it. So now they're getting paid in college, so it's a different story. But I really was fairly short-sighted with everything that I was doing, and really stayed in the moment when I was in high school. And frankly, I had a good career in high school, but I didn't have what you would label a great career by any stretch of the imagination. I got hurt the final regular season game of my junior season, and so I was on the sidelines for that, for the playoffs. And we only got to the first round of the playoffs my senior year. But I had one guy that believed in me. I had a coach that believed in me, Paul Hackett, who's had a great coaching career. And he was my guy, and he was the one that was recruiting me at the time. He was at Cal, and I was going to go to Cal, but then he went to USC because John Robinson became head coach at USC and brought me to USC, and that's how I got there.
So Paul,
it was just one person.
He went from Cal to USC, and so when he went to USC, he just continued to recruit you, but now at USC.
Yeah. He told Coach Robinson, "I've got my guy," and that's how I got to.
And it's interesting because you're right. I do know your story, so I'm going to just tell the audience that when Paul was being recruited as a high school athlete, I think USC was the only power conference school that was recruiting you, right? There was some smaller schools, but amongst the majors, they were the only one.
Cal and SC, yeah. University of New Mexico, and Santa Clara when they had football.
Right.
They were all recruiting me. Nobody else. I got a Dear John letter from Washington and Notre Dame. And by the way, we beat them really well.
We might have some Notre Dame fans on the stream, so we're not going to rub that too hard.
I love the place, so it's okay.
Okay, so here's what happens. You get Paul Hackett believes in you, and you get the chance to go to SC. Your first day of practice, they have up on the bulletin board in the locker room the depth chart. And there are 9 quarterbacks, which is crazy, but there's 9 quarterbacks in the program at SC at the time.
Counting me.
Counting you. And you see yourself on the depth chart, and you find yourself at number 9. So you start USC as a freshman as a 9th string quarterback. Do you remember, like if I saw a 9th string next to my name, I'd be like, Mom, can you come pick me up? I'm coming home. Santa Clara, I'd like to reconsider my middle name. What went through your mind at that time?
A lot of people advised me to do just that. Why are you going to USC? And you shouldn't be doing that, and you're never going to play. But I was like, okay, just watch me. But yes, reality set in. I got to USC, where the talent was immense, up and down every position. So I went out to the field for the first practice, and you pair up with somebody, and I didn't know the other quarterback, so I was thrown to a team manager to warm up.
So the other 8 quarterbacks,
he couldn't really catch it.
The other 8 quarterbacks are playing catch with each other, and the 9th string guy had to go find a student manager.
I had to find a guy to play catch with, and so I finally did, and I warmed up that way. And yeah, you look at that and you go, this is going to be a long road.
Yeah.
But I told myself, just keep showing up and doing your best.
Right.
And I really looked, to my point earlier, I looked inward about what I was really good at.
Right.
And what I had a good head on my shoulders.
Yep.
And so I studied the playbook.
Sure.
I'm
sorry to interrupt you, Paul, but I want to set up. I really want to set up this mountain you had to climb, because it was a mountain. So, Paul, you enter USC, you're 9th string quarterback, and the guy who's the starting quarterback is probably one of the most athletic quarterbacks SC's ever had, a guy named Vince Evans. Talk about the fact that you're built like a linebacker, could throw the ball 70 yards without even thinking about it, could run faster than almost any player on the team, and you weren't very fast and couldn't throw the ball very far. So,
Like, so what was I doing there? I mean,
so now we got a double whammy. First, we've learned that we're the ninth string quarterback, and now we've learned that the guy who's the starter is supremely athletic, and we're not. What was going through your mind?
Funny story. So I'm walking down the pathway to the field.
Mm-hmm.
The gate is open. I'm walking next to this wide receiver, who was a senior level guy. He was like a junior or senior. And I see this guy throwing the ball. And back then, this is when, this is how old I am, DMB. I know it's hard to believe, but when we had short shorts and those were a cool thing. So he had these short shorts on, and he's built like Adonis. He's throwing the ball like 65, 70 yards down the field, ripping it. And you know, he's buffed. And I look at that guy that I'm standing next to, and I turned to him and I said, hey, that linebacker can really throw the football. Who is that? And because he was built like a linebacker. You know, dummy, that's not a linebacker. That's Vince Evans. He's our starting quarterback. And so I immediately thought to myself, if you got to look like that, run like that, throw like that, I may never play here. That was the thought in my head.
Right.
So, but I loved the game. I was there.
Right.
So what are you going to do? So that was a good segue, Jack. So I knuckled down into those areas that I thought I could be better than the other guys. And one was the smarts,
right?
Knowing the playbook better than anybody else,
right?
Knowing the reads better than anybody else. So I studied like crazy. I got in the film room like crazy. I did extra work there. And I got the highest score in training camp of all 9 quarterbacks.
So you knew the playbook.
Of course you did.
You knew the playbook better than all other eight quarterbacks. You were number one on that in their standings. The guy who knew the playbook.
And that's why Paul Hackett brought me in, because I was a 3.8 or 9 in high school. So 4 was the max. That's again age related. but I could study and I could learn and I could repurpose information and translate it. And so that's what he saw in me. The next thing was arm strength, because of what we saw with Vince. Vince, he could throw it through a brick wall. I couldn't do that. So I had to rely on timing, and I had to be incredibly accurate with where I wanted to put the ball. And so I had to get the ball out before a guy came out of his break. And so I worked like crazy on my footwork and my throwing and my technique of throwing. And so these are the fundamental things that I spent my time on when nobody was looking.
Right.
And that really contributed. And so that started to show up in practice.
Right.
I started to make some plays. I started to do some things. People started to take notice. But the coaches don't talk to you, so you're out there doing this thing and you don't really know where you stand, especially I'm a lowly freshman, right?
Yeah.
I saw the trainer at a local diner, and head trainer actually, and we were just chit-chatting, and I said, I haven't heard a thing from the coach. What do you know? He said, you just keep doing what you're doing. It's going well. You just keep doing what you're doing. I go, okay, cool. And that's what I did, and it worked out.
So basically, flash forward many, many years, you've started a company that helps student athletes and other people to develop a strong mindset, an empowered mindset. And would you say that is kind of what you ended up becoming your competitive advantage over the other guys? Because you then, the first year, were third string quarterback, second year backup, junior and senior year starting quarterback, All-American, 8 years in the NFL. So would you pinpoint, if you had to, one specific thing that the mindset you brought to the process is what your competitive advantage was, since your athletic ability might not have been?
I really wanted it. It was really important to me. And it goes way back to when I was a kid watching football on TV. I just thought, look at these guys. They're having so much fun. How fun would that be to play on TV? That would be so cool. And that's what sort of drove me. I did have a little segue here, a sidebar comment. Interesting too. When I was in third grade, I played I was actually a pretty good athlete, but not great. I played on the 5th grade team as a 3rd grade basketball player, and did well. And the coach told my mother, who later told me, believe it or not, he says, your son is going to be a professional athlete. So he told my mother that. My mother told me, and I believed her.
Mhm.
So how important is that? Words of encouragement, uh, empowerment that you can do
Belief.
this. Belief is like massively,
So
massively important.
there's
And I carry that with me.
So there's people who have that support, and they're told by loved ones and others that they have the opportunity to be great. DMB, I'm going to direct it over to you, and I'm going to let you put in your two
Mm.
cents on Paul's story. But what about the people, DMB, who don't have that, who don't get the confidence from a mom or a coach or somebody? How do you find your confidence to chase your dreams when it doesn't feel like you have anybody in your corner?
So good. Well, first of all, I mean, there's so many things I can ask you about, Paul, and we're going to get there. But I think confidence, and I teach this all the time, I want you to view your life like a train. And in the caboose are things like confidence, motivation, happiness, joy, positive emotions. It's in the engine of the train that we make choices, even in the hardship, even in the isolation, even in the challenging times, and even when there's a lack of support. But I would say, and you used a couple phrases there, Paul, you don't find confidence, you choose confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And there's choices you can make to build your confidence. Now, granted, having a support system in place is absolutely necessary, but it's interesting. Some of the greatest athletes I've worked with and some of the most extraordinary coaches did not have that support naturally, familially as their family, but they went out and pursued that support. They pulled mentors close to them. They pulled friends close to them. They lived a life that was transparent and authentic, as Paul even talked about, and they let themselves be seen, and they actually moved toward people and took ownership for their confidence, because confidence is not something you find. And athletes say this to me on a regular basis, particularly at the college level. Oh, I can't believe it, DMB. My coach isn't giving me confidence. Like, really? You put confidence in the hands of your coach or any human being? Or coach took away my confidence. I was like, how did he do that? Confidence is your series of choices. And again, we could talk a lot about identity, but I just want to acknowledge to our listeners and our viewers here on the live stream that for many of us, we did not have the most ideal beginnings, but we used the adversity as adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
And then that adversity became the way, the obstacle became the way.
And so I'm going to ask you to follow up on where, like, if you could put yourself in a time capsule, and Paul was coming to your office when he was that 9th Street quarterback, because there's kids.
Where was he? He wasn't there. I needed him.
Exactly.
Bro, it seemed like you did just fine.
Yeah.
You did just fine, Paul.
There are a lot of athletes who don't, maybe aren't getting playing time, or maybe they are getting playing time at the high school level, but they aspire to something greater and they just don't feel like they can do it. They have that steep mountain in front of them. How would you counsel somebody who's on the bench and not getting a lot of playing time, or like in Paul's case, is a 9th string quarterback out of 9 players? Like, what advice would you give to a student athlete in those shoes?
Well, I think the advice I would give would be framed in the story that Paul just shared. And a couple things that kind of came to the surface, that bubbled to the surface as Paul shared. And I've heard pieces and parts of that story. I'm embarrassed to say, as one of your closest friends, I got to hear the whole thing in new facets to it. But when you use that phrase, you said, I was present in the moment. Paul, you said it. I was present in the moment. I wasn't thinking about the NFL. I was present in the moment. I was thinking about the next step. And for our young athletes, I'm presuming that many of them spend most of their life somewhere than other here and now, not in the present moment, or wondering backward, why am I on the bench? Why did the coach not put me in? And why am I number 9 on the depth chart? And why wondering backwards or worrying forward? Like, worrying is just borrowing sorrow from tomorrow and dragging it into today. It's not going to be helpful. But to be fully present in the moment, to be right here and now. And what was so fascinating about your story, and this would be my advice to the athletes, is, your coach, what was it? Coach Paul said, I got my guy. Well, the reason he got his guy is because, Paul, you became the guy. Mm-hmm. You spent energy and investment becoming the guy before branding the guy. And to our young athletes, what's happening oftentimes is they're spending so much trying to brand themselves before becoming themselves. And so we need to focus on the becoming, the daily choices. And I am going to challenge you a little bit here, Paul. I'm going to push back just slightly, because you said, how did you become so successful? You said, because I wanted it. So yeah, the passion was there, but I think you need to also acknowledge everything you shared was, I talk about the 8 essentials of success all the time, the 8 Ps. Yeah, you had the passion, but you connected it to preparation.
Of course.
You
Of
connected
course.
your passion to proactivity, to a
Yeah.
plan,
Yeah.
and most importantly, to perspective and persistence. You kept showing up day
Well,
after day
when
after day. So
all my buddies were going to the beach in the summer, I grabbed a receiver or two and we threw routes in the San Gabriel Valley in 95-degree weather. And we would throw an out route, and until I made 10 really good throws in a row that I was happy with, we wouldn't move on to the next
I love it.
route in the passing tree. Yeah.
Well,
So
and you were not spending your summers on the beaches. You were actually doing the work.
yes.
And that's actually the D of confidence. So actually, surprise, surprise, for those of you who know me well, confident is actually 9 choices, CONFIDENT, to growing your confidence. D is doing the work. If you do the work and you show up every day,
Right.
yeah, the passion's great. And the passion is your fuel, but you did all the things around the passion to actually, I tell you what, I work with a lot of people who go, I really want this DMB. I'm like, then why are you still sitting on the couch? Like, if you really want it, you're not doing anything. You're not preparing. You're not making those hard choices. So I'm just proud to be your friend. And that's my advice to our young athletes is let this be an amazing story of what could be. And here's what I tell my athletes too. They're like, well, what if I don't make the NFL? What if I don't make it to the NBA? I'm like, but here's the deal. All the inputs you're putting in right now, even if that exact outcome is not what you want, 2 things are going to be true. One is you're going to be so much happier. You're going to live your life to the fullest, even as you're putting in those inputs in dreaming and becoming and so forth. And even if you don't actually achieve that specific outcome, all of those things you developed, who you've become, will be able to be used in all of your life, in your relationships, in your profession, your career, in your parenting, and your everything. As you face that health diagnosis that might be challenging, oh my gosh, you're just stacking and becoming, even if you don't get that thing, which I'm glad you got that thing, Paul, but many of them won't.
The big issue, DMB, that I've seen is a lot of these guys that have lived that life as an athlete have a hard time, challenging time translating it to other parts of life because their identity is 100% wrapped up into the fact that they're an athlete, and now they're no longer an athlete. So now what?
We talked about that.
We're way more. We're way more, right?
That's right. And we had that conversation. You were in my studio, 3 Words podcast, 3 words. Who am I?
Yes.
And what I love about Paul McDonald is that football was your passion, but it was not your person.
Correct.
And so it was something outside of you that you loved, you pursued, you chased, you fought for, but it never was your entire identity. Now, I'm guessing there were times where you felt like it was more of your identity than was healthy, but even now, I mean, who you become is just extraordinary.
Hey, DMB, how would you counsel?
So that's my advice.
How would you counsel athletes, to Paul's point, how would you counsel athletes on taking what they've learned as far as really working hard toward an individual or common goal as a player or as a team, and translating that into other aspects of their life, whether it be their academics, whether it be their personal life, whether it be their professional life? How do you take what you've learned in the sporting experience and take it with you into other parts of your life?
Well, it's just continuing to be the same person, because who I am on the field or on the ice or in the pool or on the track, I take that right into all the different contexts of my life. I actually worked with a CEO in Chicago. He may be listening in now. I won't mention his name, but he only hires athletes because and the reason is he doesn't hire the position, he hires the person. And he can know a couple things that are true of a college athlete. So a college graduate who was an athlete, Division I, Division II, but he knows this much. You know how to get up early. You know how to do hard things. You know how to fail forward. You know how to hustle. You know how to you probably naturally have grit. We can train people in all the various things that we need to know in our career, but that foundational stuff, and what's happening typically in our culture, and no offense, Gen Z, but to those who are younger coming through, is that they spend so much time doing all of these external little things, hanging the ornaments on the tree, but the tree is flimsy. And the tree is sagging and tipping because the tree is not the oak tree. The tree is, I don't know, a bad example. It's a dandelion trying to hang all these things, saying, look at me, the bullet points on the resume. You just keep being that person in relationships, in the little things. And as you wake up in the morning, do you hit the snooze button? All of those things can be used in all the various contexts of life from the second you wake up to the second you go to bed.
DMB,
So it's just practicing.
I'm most proud of the academic awards I received at USC. I was one of 5 guys in the country that got an NC2A, they call it Top 5 award. I was one of 11 who received the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame award. And that measures not just on the field performance, but it measures classroom, leadership, community service, and other things, taken as a whole. And that's really what you're talking about. It's the whole person that we're creating here.
Hey, Paul, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to go back to when you were starting at SC as a freshman, and Vince Evans was the quarterback, much more of a natural athlete than you were, as we've talked about. I keep rubbing that in a little bit, right? How did you?
That's okay. That's okay. My kids do the same thing to me.
Maybe the only reason I rub it in is because I'm like 7 tiers below you in athleticism, so I'm just trying to like hang my hat on this idea of a guy's not super athletic. How did you avoid the temptation of saying, well, if Vince throws it 70 yards, I got to throw it 70 yards. If Vince can run a 40 and whatever, 4.5 or whatever he was running it in, like, how did you go, I know I can't do these things. I have to figure out my own path. What was your way of coming to that decision to become your own authentic self at such a young age? Because as a freshman, you were still a very young guy.
My body was my body. I knew what I could do, and I knew what I was capable of doing. And, I don't care if I spent every workout 7 days a week for an hour or 2 hours with a track coach, I was never going to run a 4.640. I did get it down to 4.8. I got one time in 4.8.
That's good.
I went from 5.1 to 4.8. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm never running 40 again. So I did work on my speed a little bit. I did work on my strength a little bit, but weightlifting wasn't a thing back then, way back in the day. So I worked on, again, timing. I figured out like a hack to the whole system. Like I sped my footwork up. When I tried to throw to a go route to Kevin Williams, who was the fastest guy on the team, ran 4.4 in the 40, and he ran a go route. If I took a big, long 5-step drop and tried to launch it, I'd underthrow him. So I had to speed that up a little bit. So I used, again, my head, sped that up, got the ball up, and it timed out great. I threw him a lot of deep balls. And so that was one thing that I did to shore up some areas that I, wasn't gifted at. I think I tried like crazy to be as accurate as possible, and really to have the ball. In fact, Coach Robinson, up to the day that he passed away, the head coach of the USC football team when I was there, said, Paul, you were really accurate. I mean, you were really accurate. And so again, I just hung my hat on that stuff.
Right.
And so they felt confident that Paul isn't going to screw it up for us. Mm-hmm. Paul isn't going to do that. Okay. So,
and I wish I could have seen you, Paul, in the locker room and at training and at the post-game meal and the pre-game meal, because I'm guessing you were the same guy, which built, and again, I worked with your son when he was obviously a quarterback in the Midwest, and he is his father's son because he spent so much time becoming the guy while developing his skill and talent. But I think for all of our athletes, whether they play soccer, or they're swimmers or cross country or whatever, these lessons you're teaching transcend football. They transcend talent, genetics. They allow us to go next level in all of our various sporting ventures, but also in life. But I would love to have been with you in the locker room, because I'm guessing we got the same Paul. And I'm guessing we got the same Paul. Like there was probably something that the coaches weren't just saying he's accurate. They're saying he's our guy.
Well, I was serious. I was a serious dude. In fact, great story. Roy Foster, who was an all-pro, played an All-American at SC, went to play for the Dolphins and the Niners, was an All-Pro on 4 or 5 years. I saw him at an event. He walked up to me. I hadn't seen him since USC. So years, decades later. And he says, Paul McDonald. I go, Roy, hey, how you doing? He says, you scared the hell out of me, man. I started laughing hysterically. Like, how did I scare you? You're 300 pounds and you're telling me I'm scared. He said, you were awfully serious in that huddle. I did not want to make a mistake. So interesting how you impact people. Now, did I try and do that? No, I was just being me. I was like, this is like, we're in this. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
So everybody, nobody said a word in the huddle when I stepped in the huddle. Not a word. I didn't have any conversation with anybody. I didn't have to jump up and down and grab somebody's face mask. Never. They just knew that this is a serious dude and we're in this together. Let's go make it happen.
Hey, you know what?
We see this often even in a variety of,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, real quickly, and I know you might want to field some questions in our final minutes, but what's interesting is you had both position and influence. And there's probably some of our athletes that are listening in that don't have the QB title. They don't have the starting. They're not the starter on whatever team. But influence is as powerful as position and title. In fact, when I walk into a room, whether it's an executive or an executive boardroom or a locker room, I know who has the title. I'm curious who has the true influence, because sometimes they're not the same person. And so I'm guessing that you came in, what made you great and successful is you came with that title, QB, but then you also came with that influence where people actually, because here's what happens, and I want to encourage our athletes, and I'll move it to you here, Jack, but whatever role you play on your teams, for those who are listening, I want you to both embody and express. I want you to be vocal about the things that matter. I want you to speak the truth, and I want you to say things that are truthful, that your word is your honor. I want you to actually speak. Leaders speak, but they also need to embody what they speak. So you don't speak what you're not living. So, it's interesting. If there are people in a huddle who are embodying but not expressing, they're not a leader. They're a good example, which I want them on my team. But if you can both speak and embody, there's influence and power there. Okay.
Yep.
Jack?
I'm going to just comment on that, and then we'll get to the questions. I read this book about a high school football team down in the Deep South. I think it was in Louisiana. And the coach said something about it was actually a quarterback. He called him a podium speaker. And what he meant by that was this guy was really good at saying the right things. But what he said and what he embodied weren't necessarily aligned. So it's really important that if you are going to use your mouth, it is by the example part that I think comes first, and then the vocal part comes second. Would you agree with me on that one, DMB?
I would. It's hand in glove, but I would rather have someone who is embodying but not expressing than someone who has a lot to say. And every team I've worked with, there's always the person who's got lots to say. And then people are looking like, are you serious? you're the one speaking up. So I need both. I want both, but I want the
and everybody in the locker room knows that too, DMB. The players know.
Yeah.
They play. Yeah,
roll their eyes.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump in. I'm going to ask my producer Noah to tee up a couple of the questions that we got earlier today, but I'm going to start with the ones that came in during the stream. I see a question from Isabel, and her question is for DMB. In your experience, what is the most surprising differentiating factor that your athletes come to learn is essential? The most surprising thing,
I know
differentiator that is essential.
Yeah. Isabel, welcome to the live stream. Isabel's actually a professional volleyball player overseas, and I won't tell her whole story, but she is absolutely fantastic. So that said, Isabel, in fact, I'll answer it with a question that I'm often asked is, what is the primary responsibility, or what is my primary role in the lives of collegiate and professional athletes and even high school athletes? And that is this: to help them untangle their identity from their sport. Because again, I've already hinted at this, but I want their sport to be their passion without it being their person. That's the first thing. Another distinguishing factor is that if I ask any athlete, and I've done this for years, I ask any athletes for years and years, how much of your game do you think is mindset? What percentage of your game is mental? I have never had an athlete at any level say less than 50%. Typically it's 70, 80%. So whatever number they give me, whatever percentage they give, I simply acknowledge, okay, that's good to know. So if they say 75%, my response will simply be, or 80%, my response will simply be, so you spend 80% of your time developing skills and proficiencies around the mental dimension? And they all pause and go, I'm like, wait, you just said to me that mindset and mental is 75 to 80% of your time, and you just show up and hope for the best on game day without doing any. Now you wouldn't skip training, workouts, nutrition, but what happens is I want the most elite athletes, Isabel. The differentiating factor is they're spending as much time working on that mindset piece, the mental piece, as they do the physical piece.
That is brilliant, DMB. I love that. And so true. So true.
We have another question. This one is from Elias, and I know Elias at San Pedro High School. And this question is for Paul. Paul, what was the biggest thing you looked at when going through film? What was the thing you were looking for?
Yeah, we would do self coaching. So we would look at game film of yourself to look at things that you did well and things that you needed to do better and where you could improve. So there's a lot of that. And of course, in the upcoming game, we spent a great deal of time looking at the opposing team so that, as a quarterback, that when you got to the line of scrimmage, even before you got to the line of scrimmage, you had a sense of what you were going to see. And then at the line of scrimmage, you could verify it. There's a pre-snap read and a post-snap read. So pre-snap, you're going to look and see, okay, here's my play that I called. Here's what the defense is doing. Ooh, they're going to take away that play. I might want to change it. Or B, this play is going to work, but I'm not going to go over here. I'm going to go over here most likely. And I need to move this guy with my eyes to be able to create some space to be able to get the ball to him if there's a passing play. And then you verify all that once the ball is in your hands, because sometimes, they disguise coverages and things like that. So, and when you're playing the game, I've got the quarterback has 2.5 to 3 seconds to get rid of the ball. So if you don't have a good sense of what you're doing and all that pregame mental stuff of really having a great understanding, and Tom Brady's probably the best example of that, of all the work he did with Bill Belichick, and he was the head coach, and they would look at plays and defenses, and you got a defensive genius telling Brady, oh, this guy's going to do that. See when he cheats over here. So you get little nuanced things. So I would get with those coaches or players that have a great sense of all that. And I would go visit actually the other side of the ball if you're a football player, and spend time with the defense to get to know what the defense is thinking about how they're playing and why they're lining up the way they're lining up. So you have a better understanding overall of defense if you're an offensive guy, and vice versa. The defensive guy should go over the offensive side. So all of that pre-work that DMB has talked about, that preparation that you put in, allows you to play freely when you get on the field or on the court or on the track, wherever you're at. It allows you to play freely and just play and let it go and trust it with what you're seeing.
I'm going to go to the next question. This one's for DMB. From James at Peninsula High School, where my kids went to school, and back to Elias. I went to Pedro, so we got all my homeboys in the ground tonight.
I love it.
DMB, what did you major in college?
What's interesting, yeah, I appreciate that, because what people are thinking of, I would love to do. I get this all the time. I would love to do what you do. Well, here's the deal. None of my degrees are sports psychology or counseling. I have a journalism, political science undergraduate. I have a theology master's degree, and I have a PhD in higher education. But I spent the second season of my life, James, building these experiences and doing the work and becoming the guy in these areas, and then people will seek you out. So you don't have to have a specific major aligned to get. The major is important. Obviously, having a couple degrees helps, and all the work that went into that. But whatever you want to become, and particularly in a career perspective, it may be a little bit jagged. And so I'm glad you asked that question, because people probably think, "Oh." How did
you find the space you're in today, operating in that? How did you evolve into that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Paul, but I just kept doing these things and doors kept opening and people were inviting me here. I kept raising my hand saying, sure, I'll try that. I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. And what happened is more than the bullet points on a resume, I began to stack the experiences and expertise plus education created all these open doors. And so, but it was more doing those things than actually, again, and I'm trying to practice what I preach, becoming the guy before branding the guy. So now I'm in this unique space where people seek me out and I get to have great friendships with guys like Paul and Jack, which is amazing. But it just happened slowly and I didn't try to rush the process. I just went one day at a time, one door at a time, one opportunity at a time. So yeah, I'm glad I get to see Jaden Grant's question, Paul.
Yeah, so we have a question from Jaden, and Jaden, this question I believe is for Paul. Paul, when you had a performance where you might have felt that you didn't have a direct impact on the scoreboard, or maybe it was a negative impact on the scoreboard, I guess is what Jaden's referring to. What specific steps did you take to bounce back? So how do we bounce back from a bad game?
Well, and this can be a challenge, letting go of the performance if you made some mistakes and didn't perform the way you wish to. Get back to work. You get right back on the horse and go after it. But you have to let go of the negative. Maybe even spend some time focusing on the good things you did instead of the negative. Learn from the negative, focus on the good, let go of that, and then move forward and get back on the horse and get back to work.
Can I also comment, Jaden, even though you've heard me say this 1,000 times to you, but your presence is just as powerful as your performance. And so that's important to hear because it might have been maybe on the scoreboard, it didn't show up, but in the locker room, it did. Behind the glass, it did. In the pregame conversations at pregame meal, it did. And I say this to even players who've been injured. And I've even said this to, people say, oh, I can't make a difference anymore because I'm injured or I'm not playing as many minutes as I could, or I didn't score as I should. I was like, And I like to actually say, do you feel like I'm making an impact on the team? For the teams I work with, they're like, well, DMB, yes, we love. I've never stepped onto the court.
Right.
I've never stepped onto the ice. Yeah. My presence is what's important. It's really, quite honestly, I'm not very athletic, so that's all I have to offer. But all that to say, the presence is as important as your performance.
Yeah. That's great advice. We have one from Luca Perosi, and it's for you, DMB. So if you kind of move, well, I'm not going to make you move, but there's a sign behind you that says DMB Coaching. So you have a company that does coaching for athletes, for CEOs, for a bunch of different folks, and it's all about creating high performance. What inspired you to start your organization?
Actually, high performance is a side benefit to what I'm actually seeking to accomplish. And this, my dear friend Andy and I, who launched some different initiatives on a college campus way before DMB coaching existed, as I basically said to my friend, everywhere I walk on this campus, and what I can even expand that now, every place I walk on this planet, Luca, every person I meet is living, but very few of them are alive. And so I started my organization at the request of others. Actually, I didn't even launch it. It was like, can you start this thing? Because I want every single person that I encounter to become more fully alive in all the different dimensions of their life. Organizations that thrive and human beings within those organizations that are fully alive. That's why I do what I do.
That's awesome. Hey, by the way, in about a month, GameChange and DMB Coaching are going to be embarking on an endeavor together where people who would like to hire a mindset coach from DMB Coaching to help them improve their performance in sports, academics, life, whatever it might be, will have access to DMB's coaching staff. So look for that in about a month. I've got another question from Peninsula High School, and this one is from Columbus. Who is, I think, a basketball player. Plays basketball. I'm going to ask this to both of you. How do you have confidence and still remain humble? How do you have confidence and still remain humble?
It's an interesting thing because the ego is so strong, and you have to have a powerful ego to have this confidence to walk through or to perform. And I think I think really having the perspective, it's really all in your perspective of life, is like, hey, the guy next to you across the way, the person you're playing against, we're all the same. We're all cut from the same cloth. I'm in a situation, DMB's in his situation, Jack, you're in your situation, and all the other players on the team or all the other players on the school are in a particular situation. And you're all the same. You just have a different expression. And so I would say be confident and bust through the door and give it your best and be your best self, but have class, style, compassion for everybody else around you.
Mm-hmm. And I think, if I may add to that, was great advice, Paul, is also that confidence is different than arrogance. Arrogance is me over we. Confidence is we and me. And you can be self-interested without being selfish. And this is my favorite thought about humility. Because remember, it's one of my 5 H's in just being elite, right? But humility, in my perspective, is just simply this: seeing yourself accurately. Most people see themselves as doing far better than they really are, or far worse than they really are. That we're all doing the very best that we can, but to actually be able to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself and actually say, this is how I really am, and this is how I'm really doing. And even to let that mirror, and this is what keeps people, I think, really humble. Honestly humble, meaning legitimately seeing themselves for who they are and how they are doing, is having the mirror be community as well. Seeking feedback from others. How do you experience me? What does it feel like in my presence? What do you think is my Achilles heel? That thing that maybe you see that I don't see? And be open to feedback, not just open to it and tolerating it, but inviting. Those who invite ongoing feedback, those who invite accountability, they tend to stay humble without being arrogant and without being insecure. But they live in reality.
Great. That was really good, DMB. You can be you can be confident, but also be vulnerable and transparent with other people.
Well, I think
that's what I think.
To be vulnerable, you have to have confidence, because you're literally putting yourself out there.
Yes.
And without that willingness to expose yourself in a way that might seem embarrassing or whatever, that takes confidence. So, it's this idea that people who are vulnerable might not seem strong. They're quite the opposite. They're usually the strongest people.
That's true confidence.
Well, and let me say again, confidence is in the caboose. And so what happens is, as you choose vulnerability, as you choose to share, take off the mask and share the struggles, the scars, the skeletons, the storms in your life, that choice then breeds greater confidence, and people around you respect you more.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The transparent leader is the transformative leader on the team.
That is
the best thing I ever did was I broadcast SC football games for 15 years. The best thing I ever did was that, because at some point you can, in your mind, picture what you want to say and how you want to say it and be perfect. You can't do it. Like on this live stream we're doing right now, we can't say things perfectly. We can do the best we can. It's going to come out the way it's going to come out. And when you get over the fact that you're not perfect and you're just being yourself, you relax into it and let it flow, and you're okay with it.
All right, we've got 2 more, and then we're going to say goodnight to all of our friends. Jeremy Logan asks, how are you able to stay focused and calm in general, and when things are not going your way?
It's a good question.
I'll let Paul think about it while I jump in, because I get so excited about this conversation.
I know you love this stuff. You love this stuff.
In fact, my son, who's one of my producers of my podcast, said, Dad, half of our episodes are on difficulty and challenge and pain and adversity.
Right.
And when things are not going our way, I said, because that's where people live. And here's the thing, that the things that often aren't going your way are the ingredients for becoming your best self and achieving your goals down the road. The thing that you're trying to pray away and wish away and hope away in this moment are probably gifts in your life. I'll leave it at that, Paul.
In general, when you're competing, that's a challenge, because you can get stressed out. You have a vision for how you want things to go. It's like, got to look like this, and the play's got to happen like this. You drew it up on the board like this, or whatever even in your vision of the game itself. It's not turning out the way you want it to turn out. You have to stay present to ditto what DMB has said throughout tonight, and in the moment, and breathe. There's some things you can do. Some breathing exercises on the sideline while you're not playing, just to get centered and get back to normal, and not get caught up in the future outcome. Don't drag the trauma from the past to right now. Just be right now. Next play. Indiana did that incredibly well. That was a big thing that those guys focused on. Signetti was unbelievable, and he drank his Kool-Aid. They all drank his Kool-Aid, and they just lived one play to the next.
All right, last question.
And you know, I'm gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I quickly comment? Quickly. Oh yeah, because I got to give a shout out to my guy Matt McDonald, because I'll never forget when things were going hard. He would obviously feel it deeply, but he would remain so calm. And he would remain so poised. Your son, Paul, and reason was, it was all about perspective. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of a game, when things didn't go well, I'll never forget the day when I stood outside that locker room, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And you could just crushed. Horror. It was a sad, disappointing day. But then he looks at me and he goes, "DMB, it's just a football game."
Well, you helped him immensely with that.
But just having that perspective just brings the tension down in the room. So I would say to all of our athletes listening in, whatever it's like, I know it's important, and I want you to see it as important. I want there to be a sense of urgency and a sense of toughness and grit, but it's just a game.
This is one for you. Here's a question for you, DMB, from the middle son, Andrew, who played a little bit of football himself at New Mexico State, and we love him.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, speaking of McDonald's sons, we got Andrew, who is a quarterback at New Mexico State for the Aggies. So he knows a little bit about what this is. First game he played was against the University of Texas, 100,000 Longhorn fans screaming for his blood. So he's been in the arena. And Andrew asks, when momentum turns against you in a game or competition, and doubt starts to creep in, which it does, let's be honest. How do you reset before that doubt takes over? What are quick, easy steps to get back into the flow?
Well, I'm not going to go into my philosophy on if momentum is even a real thing versus outsider choices.
That's another topic.
Because I talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I will, in those moments, and I've said this even because, I'm now in basketball season with some of my basketball players, and I say, there are 24,000 seconds. 24,000 seconds in a game. Several of those seconds are not going to go as you had planned. Let it be a second when it doesn't go well, as opposed to a minute or a period. And in those moments, and I say to all of my athletes, who you were before that challenging moment, when things didn't go your way, you're the same person 10 seconds later. Nothing has changed about you. That's identity. Nothing. So I think that centers to go, I am the same guy. So I'm okay. Next play, you take a deep breath, whatever. There's a variety of meditation and visualization activities we can do. But at the very core of it is to know nothing has changed about me. I'm still that guy that I was pregame or 10 minutes ago when the shot went in. And I don't want you to go too high when the shot goes in. If you make 7 3-pointers in a row, I still don't want you to be like, now I'm the guy. It's like, I'm the same guy. And that just allows you to stay in that centered space. Paul, you agree? Or what are your thoughts? You're the professional athlete.
Well, but I
was the theater kid.
You're the guru. You're the guru now. I mean, I ditto exactly what you said. I mean, that's to take it. I've never heard that, but to take it to a core, and it is true, because this time shall pass. This time shall pass. This second will pass. This minute will pass. This incompletion will pass. This missed shot will pass, whatever it is. And to have that perspective of, I'm the same guy that toiled all off season, that can rip the ball, can do this, can do that, can run for, can catch, make catches, can make plays, can do, that's who I am. Again, it's all about going back to who you are, believing that's who you are, and the skill set you have, and flipping the switch to the positive. Again, the best way to move through fear, as you know, is gratitude.
Yes.
Maybe just look up the stands and, isn't this cool that I get to play this game that I love?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And what a great way to end this conversation. Gratitude plus, for many of you who are high school students, you started playing your sport because it was fun. Yeah. And I say this all the time to my, now that they're being paid big money and they're professional, like fun is not in opposition to fierce and focus. Fun is actually fuel for fierceness and focus.
Yeah, that's
when we stop having fun. So back to your question, Andrew, this idea, it's like, how do I get back into the flow? It's like, okay, smile ear to ear. Let's have fun.
Let's go.
We're going to have some fun.
Let's go.
And have fun. You're not going to play worse.
Right.
Where some people think, well, that's going to make you soft. No, it's going to make you solid.
Yes. Because you're going to be relaxed.
Yes.
You're going to be relaxed. You're not going to be tensed up. Oh my God, I better not. You're not going to pull the string on that throw. Like, okay, I got to guide this one in there because I missed the last one.
You're playing to win and not playing not to lose.
Yes.
And so fun allows you to
let it rip.
And Paul, you brought up Indiana, and I think a great example of that was Mendoza, their quarterback, and their whole team. You could see those guys were having fun, but they were fierce competitors while they were having fun. So I love that perspective, DMB. A lot of people think that if you're having fun, you must be not fierce. You could absolutely be fierce and have fun, and I think it's a great way to end this live stream. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're really excited to have you with us. We're going to be doing another one in 2 weeks with former Heisman Trophy winner Carson Palmer. He was a Heisman Trophy winner at USC. I think spent 13 years in the NFL. We look forward to seeing you back in a couple weeks. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you.